The Church of the Conscious Mind. Consciousness is the new religion. We hear that 25% of the American public have deserted church in the past 20 years, a trend that doesn't seem to be abating either. That represents 82 million people who have changed their belief systems, an astonishing groundswell. What are all these people doing for solace these days? The prevailing thought is that politics has become the new religion. The rise of populist politicians such as Donald Trump, Jair Bolsonaro and Boris Johnson, with their flashy rhetoric and their headline-grabbing one-liners, has attracted a certain segment of the populace to follow them. These charismatic figures use language taken from the Old Testament to keep the parallel between God and politics tight. Their policies have become holy wars. We're hoodwinked into believing that God is somehow backing their cause by the insertion of holy rhetoric. Many of the church deserters are young, impressionable, and looking for a cause. A smaller percentage of these people who have seen through the charade of the church. So many people have been put off by the way that the corrupt preachers and priests have comported themselves that religion has lost all meaning. There are some other currents underfoot here too. There's an interesting new fashion doing the rounds, that of appearing stressed. It started for me in the 1990s in the city, when American banking firms started to grow in the City of London. Very quickly it became the norm not to leave the office before your boss did. If you didn't look stressed and busy all the time, then you just weren't trying hard enough. For a high salary, you were expected to have to hurt yourself mentally and physically. Nobody could get paid well and be happy. That just wasn't part of the scene. It was observed in the 1920s that young men adopted an air of being languid and aloof. This was a trend set in universities that stayed popular amongst young middle and upper class people till well after the Second World War. The new fashion is for young men to look deeply stressed. John Cleese very aptly points out that we're no longer able to distinguish the difference between solemnity and seriousness. He says it's always possible to have a serious conversation with humour in it, but people mistake a humorous conversation as not having any gravity. Well, as a child, I was always aware of teachers who managed to make me learn something. They were open-minded and often funny people. In my adult life, I've met teachers who are so po-faced that it's almost impossible to engage with them. And it's the same problem with religion. If you take Qigong so seriously that you think there's no place for humour in class, then you've missed the point, especially with a Western audience. Life and teaching need to be held with a light and happy touch, not the solemnity of an out-of-touch priest or the stress of an overwrought worker. So now we find ourselves living, as the great philosopher Boyd George sang, in the church of the poisoned mind. Our minds have been poisoned by politics and religion for so long. What we are searching for, and are programmed for at a DNA level, is an improvement in our lives. We often feel that things have never been so bad, but almost every metric available, and by any metric available, life is greatly improved for the vast majority of humans. The traditional way to make these improvements was through the development of various religions that tried to stop us from killing each other, but they sadly became weaponized themselves in the perverted process. We turned to politics to help guide and shape our societies, but in turn these became unwieldy and eventually weaponized too. The underlying aberration in both of these was greed. The understanding of time and the limited lifespan we give ourselves has created a journey. We are hardwired to look for improvement and aimed towards comfort. If you take a straight line, then that suggests a simple evolution where we evolve together in cooperation. If you add the idea of making comfort your single dedicated goal, then greed starts to creep in. Comfort is addictive. It's all too easy to see, trying to get the best seat on the train, aiming oneself for the biggest sofa in the cafe, endlessly trying mattresses until we find the perfect night's sleep. If you are making me uncomfortable, I'm likely to push you back. I want my slice of the comfort pie. War easily ensues. You'll not be surprised to hear me offering the idea of Qigong as the perfect tool to help us on this journey. There is discomfort inherently built into Qigong. We sometimes use a wonderful exercise called Chen Qi, or another one called Chen Bi. One requires you to move your shoulder blades together 60 times a minute. The other requires you to keep your arms outstretched in a straight line. Well, that sounds fine, until I suggest we do the exercises for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 40 minutes. The secret is to do the exercise with a Qi mind and a Qi body. Using your regular mind and muscles will only cause pain and anguish. So here's a change that I've been able to appreciate after my 35 years of Qigong. My resistance to pain and discomfort has evolved. It allows one to be a much more patient person, a quality not shared by the young or by politicians. If you desire to blast into government and sweep the board clean, you'll fail. Politicians seem to be getting younger. Yes, I know I'm getting older, and that's always how it looks to an old person. But patience is not seen as an important quality these days. People are no longer happy to bide their time. Hence, we see a UK Prime Minister at 47, when it wasn't unusual for us to expect our leaders to be in their 60s in the recent past. As the journey of time seems to accelerate, so younger people push themselves forward more quickly. This is not, in my opinion, such a healthy trend. People who have endured more can be more patient, as understood through Qigong. Qigong is the tool I suggest to rectify this. I'd love for our children to be taught this kind of resilience-building exercise. Imagine how our world would look if it were run by generations of stable, patient people. There's another deeper flow here too. If the current world seems like the church of the poisoned mind, where do we find the promised church of the conscious mind from the title in this article? And moreover, why would we bother? My contention is that we are addicted to stress as a race. All patience has leaked away. We plaster on a po face of solemnity and seem to have forgotten joy and love. We resort to the age-old plan of violence rather than peace. Unfortunately, just doing more of the same will not, as Albert Einstein pointed out, return a new result. If we continue to use the same thinking, then the downward spiral to destruction of the human race beckons. We will shortly deliver the nuclear solution to ourselves and reset the world to begin again, hopefully with a more enlightened race. Assuming that this is not what we desire, then where does the path lie? Over the millennia, a few individuals have stood out in our cultures. These are people who have achieved a higher level of mind state, often referred to as enlightenment. It's been seen as being for the few and as in the gift of God. My suggestion is that if one puts oneself in the way of enlightenment, it might find you too. I think we can make the ground fertile, plant the seeds, and eventually more of us find a way to the hidden door evolving humanity. Have I found it yet? The honest answer is no. However, I have experienced moments of true universality, where the travails of life dissolve and the experiences of oneness flood in. In a state like this, it's no longer possible to see the destruction as the only way. The sudden realization that you are me and that I am in every you brings the understanding that there is only oneness, only universal consciousness. Qigong is simply the sturdy pedestal upon which we place unity consciousness. Don't get me wrong, there are many other paths to the top of the mountain. This just seems to be the most viable to me after half a lifetime of looking. There are many teachers who can help you prepare for this adjustment. My teachers Lu and Ling from China, and through them and via myself, we can help suggest a path. There's a great teacher in Ireland called Manny who has a wonderful free course on YouTube. There are amazing books out there, my personal favourites being the books of Jed McKenna. One of the greatest masters in the field would have been Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, who posits the question, who am I? He suggests this line of self-inquiry to help one understand that there is nothing but consciousness. If we are to save the human race, we need to, yet again, evolve the human race. It's 30,000 years since we came to prominence as the leading species. It's time to evolve again and become Homo spiritualis. Take time in your day to evolve your conscious mind. If we can create a wave of conscious evolution, then humanity may yet survive. On our current trajectory, I think not. There are old stories that suggest that there have been other iterations of sentient beings on Earth throughout the aeons. We hear stories of the Atlanteans and the Lemurian race who became all-powerful and then ended themselves through their misuse of technology. Seems we may well be on the brink of that once more. I'm suggesting another way to evolve the species, not a way to reset us back to zero once again. If you require my guidance, you only need ask. Love, 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 always love.